but it's so unreliable. Those things blow up. Don't they burn oil? Those are some of the major comments anytime a person brings up an RX-7 into a conversation. So having previously been an owner of one, and in fact it being my very first car, I'd like to take the opportunity to go over it. This will be part of a series where I'll cover each car I've owned, and in the backdrop you'll get to see an equivalent version of that car on my sim for viewing pleasure. Let's go. My 1987 Mazda RX-7 was part of the second generation of RX-7s known as the FC. The FC represents Mazda's dedication to innovation in rotary engine technology. Produced between 1985 and 1992 in the States, this model brought Mazda international acclaim and positioned itself strongly against European and Japanese competitors, offering distinctive styling and notable advancements in sports car technology. Throughout its production run from 85 to 92, Mazda manufactured approximately 272,000 FC RX-7 units globally, highlighting its popularity and broad acceptance in the automotive market. Now, let's talk about the performance statistics. For the non-turbo coupe, which is what I had, it was a naturally aspirated 1.3-liter 13B rotary engine. It put out 146 horsepower, offering spirited yet manageable performance. I think its 0 to 60 time was approximately 8.5 seconds, which was competitive for the era, and the quarter mile time was 16.5, reflecting its balanced performance. Its curb weight was coming in at about 2,800 pounds, and that's what helped keep it agile. The convertible contained the same 13B engine with 146 horsepower, but you got to put the top down. With it being heavier, the 0 to 60 time was around 9 seconds and the quarter mile time around 17 seconds. That weight is 2,900 pounds because of the additional structural reinforcements. Now, the Turbo 2 Coupe, that's the one, if I could have back then, would have loved to have had and is still iconic, and I consider getting one today. This also has the 13B engine, still a 1.3 liter, but the output is 182 horsepower due to that turbo. That dropped the 0 to 60 acceleration to about 6.5 seconds, which back then was a serious contender, and completing the quarter mile time at 15 seconds. Now, the curb weight was a little bit up from the non-turbo naturally at about 2,900 pounds, so it was closer to that of the convertible, but that power to weight ratio is significantly better. And again, this is the one to have, and this one has popularity in racing, as well as, of course, Initial D, thanks to Ryosuke. Some notable features that the 87 RX-7 had were distinguished from its peers, or that was distinguishable from its peers, was it had the Dynamic Tracking Suspension System, or DTSS, which for the time it was a revolutionary suspension system that dynamically adjusted the rear suspension during cornering, and that significantly improved the stability and handling precision. Also, that Turbo 2 brought that turbo engine, so clearly, you want that increased horsepower, and it wasn't something that was, I think this was the first production powered turbo rotary car. I think maybe in Japan they might have had a turbo FB, but I'll have to look into that. And then in 87, that was the first time a convertible RX-7 was offered. And of course the dynamic styling, which drew inspiration from the Porsche 944, which I also love. Mazda crafted an aerodynamic and visually appealing design, which really enhanced the global appeal. Let's talk about the FC's competitors. So during the late 1980s, the RX-7 faced stiff competition from several notable vehicles. Like I mentioned earlier, the Porsche 944 was a direct competitor, and that influenced its design and its market positioning. The Toyota MR2, which provided that nice agile handling and mid-engine appeal, also coming out of Japan. The The not so popular Pontiac Fiero GT, that was an American built and sporty alternative for our market here. And of course, the Nissan 300ZX, which delivered robust performance and comfort. It competed closely in the sports car market segment. As far as achievements and accolades go, the 87 RX-7 received a few of them, and it reflects its excellence and its capability. It was featured in Car and Driver's revered 10 best list in 87 and applauded for its exceptional driving dynamics. It was awarded Motor Trend's Import Car of the Year in 86, underscoring its significance in the sports car market. And it dominated IMSA GTU racing championships consistently from 1980 through 1987, showcasing its strong racing heritage and reliability, and also the subsequent GTU model that was released. So what is it like to own one? Owners of the FC RX-7 will praise the unique driving experience delivered by the high-revving rotary engine, the lightweight chassis, and precise handling characteristics. While owning this car is highly rewarding, it does demand meticulous care and routine maintenance to sustain its performance and reliability. I can tell you that the one that I owned, which was a non-turbo, had over 150,000 miles on the original motor and transmission. I bought it from some guy for $1,400 who definitely didn't take care of it, but it still ran just fine. With the reputation of it being so unreliable, my first experience proved to be the exact opposite since I had already had one with high mileage. And what I really loved about this car was how light it truly felt. Mine didn't have power steering, but it was easily manageable. I was able to toss it into corners, and if I needed more angle, a clutch kick came in clutch. This car really did want to rev. On the 87 version I had, the red line was at 7,000, but you could easily keep revving it to 8K. But, no real power was being generated. It was just still fun. It wasn't fast at 146 horsepower, and due to age and compression, I had probably lost a lot less than that, or I probably had a lot less than that going to the wheels. But I was able to take on some of the civics of the day for fun. The car was very analog, from steering to gas to literally zero driver's age. It didn't even have ABS, and I absolutely loved it. And based on my experience, if you maintain the car, do things such as rev it out to clear out the carbon, you use oil, and even premix it, it can be reliable. I didn't have any issues except the one time it flooded and I didn't know why. Folks, when you start up a rotary engine, when it's cold and you turn it off, it will flood, and then you have to manage that situation. The maintenance required and some of the common issues are oil consumption. And regular monitoring and maintaining oil levels is crucial since the rotary engine consumes oil for apex seal lubrication. It is best to keep a quart of oil on hand and check when you fill up your gas. That's all. The cooling system. You want to prevent it from overheating by keeping the cooling system optimal. As overheating can quickly damage a rotary engine, you have to be careful. Pay attention to the temperature gauge. I mentioned the only issue I had was with the flooding of the car, but I actually, as I recall, I had a fan clutch go out, which caused it to heat up, and I immediately turned it off to protect it and not drive it until I could install that fan clutch. I also upgraded my radiator, and I think back then I put in a Koyo radiator. So make sure that you take care of the cooling system. Fuel system maintenance, regular checks and replacement of the fuel pulsation dampers to prevent leaks and fire risks. This information exists in the forums. Electrical systems, ensure that your circuit board and electrical connections remain intact and are functioning properly to avoid malfunctions. The only problem I had here was on my gauge cluster, and I replaced that. And then vacuum lines. Proactively replacing aged vacuum lines could compromise the engine performance. So the issues, for the most part, the frequent issues are what you would find in an old car: fuel leaks, cooling system failures, electrical gremlins, interior plastic discoloration. That's typical for a car's age, and this one is no different. The only thing that's different is the engine. So, contrary to popular belief, the rotary engine can be highly reliable with proper and regular maintenance. But remember, your mileage may vary. It's not a one-size-fits-all, so always keep that in mind. My overall summary is this. The FC RX-7 is an absolute classic. In today's age, they are rarer than ever. Whether it's an NA, a turbo, or a convertible, which is least desirable, they really are the last of a dead, not dying breed. This was a fantastic car then, and it's a fantastic car now. What a joy it is to be a driver and get to experience you being the one doing all the driving. Yes, the engine is unique, and it may give you some trouble if you don't treat it just right. But if you do, and when you get the opportunity to rev it out and hear that little Wankel engine scream, it is rewarding. It sings you a little song. Though I've gone through many cars since, this one is always on my heart. Not just because it was my first, but because there hasn't been anything like it, nor will there ever be. As we've come so far technologically, and Mazda teases us with bringing the rotary back, it still won't be the same as this car. So if you have the opportunity to come across one of these and own it, definitely do. Experience it, learn it, and be one of the few that can actually say they got to drive and own a rotary and it's not as bad as people make it seem. It's an overall experience, and yes, that experience is worth it. So what happened to mine? I sold it because I wanted something new. I wanted to buy an RX-8. I wasn't done with the rotary engine, and I was somewhat of a fanboy back then, if you only knew. The person I sold it to ended up wrecking it after a couple of weeks, and that was that. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you found this interesting and want to tune into this continued series. Now I'll let the sim play with the audio so you can hear some of that lovely rotary action roaring through the LA canyons. I'm out.